A great honor and a privilege to introduce Gita Cycowycz, an extremely dear and close friend who I've known now for over a year. And I came to your home before the COVID, and you were so kind to tell me your whole life story. And Gita, here I'm in your home, in your beautiful home, and these are pictures that you were when you went to Poland. And you've been, how many times have you been to Poland?
It had to be at least 120 times.
Payment?
120 times.
Wow.
Because I've been going for, now it's going to be 22 years. When I started going, 22 years, and most of the years I went 4 to 6 times a year to Poland. And I went with with high schools, high school kids, Jewish yeshiva high school kids, with boy high schools and girls high schools, but they were all religious, good Torah type of high school, and many times over with the same high school, Chorev Banot, and also Or Torah Stone. This is Rabbi Riskin School. And I went with the army, and I went with other schools. I forget now what it's called, near Kiryat Gat, a very well-known school. But in any case, regularly, and I went with the army 2 times, and I went with the FIDF, Friends of the IDF, which were groups of donors, big donors to the army, and from America mostly, and with them together went very high-level officers. The last time I went with the army, no, this was with the FIDF, the chief of staff, Rav Gadi Eisenkot, was there in person. And at other times, the people who led these groups were generals of the army, and we became very good friends for life. They still are in touch with me, and I see them. But the other people who came with the FIDF were the specialists in the army who deal with very special equipment, like the, what is it called, Iron Dome.
Wow.
And all kinds of aeroplanes and all kinds of helicopters and rescue helicopters. So it was a very good experience to have, a very good thing to have this experience. I got to really the cross-section of Jewish life.
And Gita, was it very difficult emotionally for you to go back to Poland?
It's very difficult emotionally every day.
Yeah.
It's not, well, not every day, but very often when I hear something, about the Holocaust, I immediately, I feel like crying. I wasn't like this always. But now when I hear about it, and when I had so many special experiences that I didn't tell you about. One kind, very special kind, very unique experiences that didn't have to do so much. It's with the Holocaust, as it was reactions of people to the. I'll tell you two unique experiences that I had. Now, can I put this down?
Please. Let's get on. could go ahead, Gita.
So you want to put it like this?
Very good. Well, Gita, it would be wonderful if you could.
I tell you two experiences.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I already told you how my mother was taken away from us, from my sister and me. We got into Auschwitz with my father, one of my sisters, of two sisters, and my mother and me, 4 people. My sister was sent to Budapest, 2 sisters who were about 15 and about 19, 20, were sent to Budapest by my parents to learn some kind of a malacha, some kind of a trade, because my father was in the possession of a certificate, which was the permit to take our family to Palestine. He got this certificate, he asked for it before I was born, and he held it and wanted very much. He was a Talmid Chacham, a big Talmid Chacham. At age 11, he was learning in an outside yeshiva, I don't know where, but he always was in the middle of learning Gemara by himself and by some people who came to my town from the villages to be malamdim, a malamed for little children, because they didn't have a parnosa in the village, and the women didn't work too much, and they were poor people, and they had to come and live their very poor life. My mother used to send them sometimes food, and for Shabbos they would go home to their families. But I remember that my father was learning with these people who were malamdim, little cheder for little children, and they appreciated it. So this is my father. At the same time, and he wore a shtrama, because in the shul where he davened, there were many Hasidic people who davened there, and it was sort of a minhag from that kind of crowd. My father was definitely not a chassid. He was a Litvisher type, a learner type. And excuse me, let me just clear my throat. And what's in the middle of saying? But in all of this, he was a very, very strong Zionist. He wanted to go to live in Israel and to start working with his hands. He had a businessman in Khust. He had 2 businesses, and he was dreaming of removing stones, rocks from the fields, so that the field can be plowed and made productive. And he also had this kind of dream for us, 3 daughters. And he thought that we would work very hard with our hands. And therefore, he sent the 2 girls to Budapest to learn something, so that my mother, at first, when he got that certificate, she refused to go to Israel. And she knew what she was talking about. She heard that life in Palestine was very, very difficult at that time. And that the climate was very hard. And she said, not now. We're living here in Baruch Hashem. We're nice middle-class existence.
And which town were you living?
Khust, in Karpatorus. Rabbi Dushinsky was our Rav when I was born, but he left in 1931 with 6 families who accompanied him to Yerushalayim, and a few years later he became chief rabbi of Yerushalayim of the Eda Haredit. And we had afterwards, a very lovely other Rav with whom we were very friendly. He was 31 years old. He got Chust as a Chazaka because his grandfather was Rav. Before Rav Dushinsky his grandfather was Rav in Chust, and he was elected against 2 other candidates, the Puparov and Rav Yoel Teitelbaum, Satmararov.
Wow.
And I heard, and this is maybe not nice to tell this story, that after Rabbi Grunwald, Yeshua Grunwald, was elected with his chazokah, the other rabbis, the losers rabbis, were walking up and down on the main street singing, Shia Shaiget Poshe Israel, Yeshua. There was a lot of politics there. But anyway, this was Chust. And my father, in all this, and he was very close to the Rav, and so he sent, this is the point I want to get through. They were living in Budapest, and it was nice. They learned something, I don't remember what it was, and they started working. They didn't come home, we didn't call them to come home, and they were maintaining themselves now, and they bought nice things in Budapest. And during the initial time that they were in Budapest, we were actually living under Czechoslovakia until 1939, when Hitler marched into Czechia and occupied it, and Slovakia declared its independence under a Catholic, fascistic, anti-Semitic priest. And he was really brutal to the Jewish people there. But we were occupied at the same time, 1939 March, we were occupied by Hungary, Karpato Rus. That was the area where we lived, and part of Slovakia, and part of Romania, that was Transylvania, and part of Yugoslavia. And we lived under Hungarian occupation for 5 years, until 1944. And the Hungarian ruler, whose name was Nicholas Horthy, refused to let the Nazis in to take his Jewish people. Couple of years before he occupied Karpato Rus, he asked Hitler to allow him to join him as an Axis state. The Axis states were, at that point, Italy and Germany. And Hungary wanted Horthy himself, asked to be a shutaf, partner. And therefore, Hitler went crazy, absolutely crazy, when over all the years okay, let me just briefly say this. He occupied Poland in 1939, September 1. After the Hungarians came into us in March 1939, Hitler occupied Poland in 1939, September 1, and immediately proceeded to persecute the Jews. And this came very clearly in to mind when I was going to Poland from 1999 until today. If there wouldn't be
the virus,
coronavirus, yes. So I know we lived under Hungary, which was a self-declared fascistic state, but we lived there and we lived there under Holocaust circumstances. I must have told you this, and I won't repeat this because we're onto another track now, that in the 5 years in which we had lived under Hungary, my father, first of all, when the Hungarian army walked into Hust, to my town, my father had tears in his eyes. He was terrified of the Hungarians because this was just a few years after World War I, and my father was born in 1995, so it's in there.
1895.
1895, which was just a few years before the World War I began. He was in his 20s. And he must have experienced something terrible, which he didn't talk to us about, but he hated the Hungarians. On Shabbos, he did not permit us to speak to my mother in Hungarian, which was our mother tongue. Because before World War I, we belonged to the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. Okay? So that's where we are now. So in the 5 years in which the Hungarians occupied us, I told you, they kicked us out from school. I was 12 years old then. They kicked all the Jewish kids out of a totally mixed school system. It's one school system. That was the Czech schools under the Czech Republic, and where all the people of Hust, I repeat what I had told you before, Hust contained 20,000 population, out of which 8,000 were Jews, and the others were of Ukrainian and Hungarian and German origin, okay? And so we were more than a third of them. And we lived with these Goyim. They were all Goyim and we were all Jews. And we lived with them, we worked with them, we bought from them, they bought from us. The Jews were, okay.
Did you have any friends, any non-Jewish friends?
I'm sorry?
Did you have any non-Jewish school friends? Any of the school friends, did you have non-Jewish school friends?
Of course we had. First,
and you got on well?
Under the Czech system, I was not in this school that I'm talking about because my mother wanted us to be very well educated And she wanted us to learn Czech, which was a new language to us, by Czechs, the language that the Czech people speak, proper literate, the cultured type of Czech. So what happened, there were no Czech people, we had no connection with the Czechs. It only happened after World War I when Czechoslovakia was created. So we went, my two sisters and I, went to special schools where the Czech children went, and of course we had friends. And they loved to come to my house, and excuse me, this doesn't have I will answer it. So that was one thing. When the Hungarians came in, yes, and the first thing was that they told us to go back to school, and I was sitting there in the school, and the teacher came in, and here are all the Jewish kids. At that point, there were no Czechs anymore because the Czechs went all back to Czechia. They had brought in a few hundred Czech families to spread the Czech culture. And so they went back, and we went to Hungarian school, and we sit there, 12 years old, and you see the whole mass completely mixed up. Jewish boys who had come from Cheder every morning to school, and then they went back to the Cheder after school ended 3 o'clock. And they had the long prayers, some of them, and no kippah. And there were Jewish kids and Hungarian kids and Ukrainian kids and all kinds, and religious and non, and boys and girls. Today it wouldn't be possible. Nobody built a Jewish school, not for girls. The boys had yeshivas. I am so sorry.
Not to worry. Gita, can I ask you, when you were at university and when you were in that department where there were the history and they were doing Holocaust studies, they never came up to you and asked you, please tell us about your experience?
I'll tell you even something worse. We lived in New York, in Borough Park, in Brooklyn. And in the summer, while the kids were little, and we couldn't send them to camp yet, we had to go away for the summers to the mountain areas, because the climate in New York is absolutely horrendous. There is no big air conditioning systems anywhere. There was one air conditioner in a place, and you cannot keep little children in the room all day long, and you have no place to go with them. So we went up to the mountains, to the Catskill Mountains, okay, every summer. And we usually I went, my family, with my friends and their families. Kids were in the same school, we were very Heimish, we came from similar backgrounds, we loved each other. This was our chevra. One year, after a few years, a group of American people who were born in America, religious Jews, they fitted in very nicely, and they came also. And these were people who were college educated, and who of us had any college education? Maybe Zevi must have been, I don't know. At first, when I went there, I had no education past 12 years. But then and that's when he was about close to a year, my youngest son. When he was 3, I sent him to a cheder, and I went straight to Brooklyn College and got registered there for college studies after having left my studies at age 12. But that's not the story for now because I have something else to tell you. So, to answer the question, yes. So among these people, this American group, there was one psychologist, he was a school psychologist, and one was, I don't remember, they were intellectual people who went through college educated people, as opposed to us, who whatever we knew, and we knew a lot, believe me, we were very smart and intellectual and had curiosity and read a lot, and one of them was a historian who was working in that class. And one day, all of these were a clique, and we were a clique. And one day they sent me a message somehow. One of them told me, I think personally, that they would like for me to be in their Hebra, join them. But, and I think she must have worked very hard on wording this next phrase, they wouldn't want me to continue being friends with my friend.
Ay, 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 ay.
I mean, this was so insulting. How would they think? How could they think of such a thing? It was really mean. And I didn't even answer them. But of course, I stayed best friends till today with these people.
Phew, this is unbelievable. But in Borough Park, when you were living, you mixed with a lot of...
No, well, they didn't, did not live in.
No, but where you...
They lived in Flatbush.
Where you lived, you mixed with a lot of also survivors as well? A lot of your friends, were they also survivors, or did you...
Survivors? There was a great survivor population there, but not excessive, not too many. I don't know why, because many of them became not religious or were not religious. And this was not it wasn't a proper atmosphere for them.
Did you ever
Many became rich.
Yeah. But did you ever have a reunion? Did you ever get together and discuss?
Well, let me tell you. We were there where my daughter has a conflict with me because she says I must have spoken about it because I knew about it. But I told you about my mother, okay? She's important in this picture. She bought a house in a very nice place, in a nice little building. Looks like a brown house. You know brown houses? Anyway, it's a brick house with a little garden in the front and a little garden in the back. And the house was very cute. 3 stories, about 200 meters of living space there. And 2 parts first, and then just 1 part was rented out so that we can pay our mortgages. But that's not important. We had rented one of these houses. There were 5 houses like this, one next, like together. 5 houses like that. One day I'll find you a picture of the house. I just saw one recently. And then another child was born, and I didn't want to stay in rental, and we bought a house, and luckily next door to my mother's house, like one house next to the other. So, why I'm talking about this is that my mother lived with my sister whose husband died, and when she came, she stayed behind because our visas to America came like this. The three girls, my two sisters and I, the two sisters were already married, okay? And they didn't yet have children. My older sister, Etu, got pregnant, and her husband was with us in Prague. He was at that time 42 years old. He was quite older than my sister, and he had no one left. And so, but he befriended me very much and my mother. And so when the girls called us over to Heb, he also came. Whom should she stay with? He stayed with. He wanted to be with us, family. And he came and he married my sister a couple of years later. And he found himself a nice apartment. And so, did I ever tell you how we got the permits to come to America? No, okay. I had an aunt, my mother's sister. One of them lived a little further away from us, also in the same area. And this was Doda Rivka, Tante Rivka, whom I never met in my life, none of us. My mother met her every year. She met her two sisters when there was a yahrzeit of my grandfather, Zichrono Livracha, who was a big, very, very respected Rav. But we children never met with them. And her husband was a shochet, and he didn't make a living. So they sent him to America, because America paid the kosher shochtim very well. And he would come periodically back to the family and went back and left money and everything was fine. Toward World War II, maybe a year before the war broke out, he brought his oldest son, Duvedlai. Oh yeah, I have to call them on the phone. Oh, one of my cousins died last week. And so Duvedlai, my cousin, he brought him to America, to New York, put him down, told him what he should do, what he should learn. If you know offset press, you know what's offset? Lithography, yes. And fine. And he learned it, and he worked at it, and he got married, and he had children, and they lived there. A year later, the war broke out, and this Uncle Tuvia, went back home from America, home, to pick up his family and bring them to America. And he did. His wife and 4 single children. 2 married children he couldn't take. But the 4 single children he took, and they went to Budapest, the capital of Hungary, and he was let in to the not the consulate, the, what do you call it?
The embassy? Embassy?
Embassy. The USA embassy in Budapest. And they kept them there. And this was the best hiding place in the world for Jews to be, in Budapest. And everything was fine until a bomb fell on the American embassy and killed the whole family. Happened to be in a room where the hit the uncle and the wife and the 4 children. Okay? And their Duwad Leib, my cousin's daughter, one of the daughters was almost my age, a little younger than me, and after the divorce she got married, and she went to Budapest to check what happened there. Everything was in detail written down, everything was recorded, everything was fine, documented. They sent him to the cemetery, where he saw the 6 graves of her family. Okay? Now, this is another Holocaust tragedy. But now, what happened actually? What did I want to?
How did you get the visas? The visas to go?
Yes. Duwad Leib, my cousin. He went to shul. He lived on the Lower East Side, where Rabbi
Feinstein was?
Feinstein lived there. And he went to a shul. There are plenty of shuls on the Lower East Side. And next to him sat somebody, and as is customary, he said to the neighbor, who was obviously did not belong to this shul, he was a stranger here, and he says to him, "Vikim Tayid, where is the Jew from? Where is the Jew coming from?" That's the customary dialogue when you see a stranger. And he says, "I come from Svaljevo." So my cousin Duwad Leib smiles, and he says, "I am a Svaljevo grandchild." What does it mean? When you say that, so am I. The Svaljevo roof was my grandfather and his grandfather. But he says he's a grandchild of Svaljevo. He's a descendant of the Svaljevo roof. My mother came from Svaljevo to Hust and married my husband. It wasn't customary for a girl from a rabbinical house to marry into business. You know, they wouldn't be marrying a roof or Diane or somebody. So the man says, "Really, I went to the yeshiva of the Rav." And Duwad Leib says, "In that case, I have to tell you that my aunt, the Svaljevo Roof's daughter, survived with 3 children, Auschwitz." And he says, "Hannah of the Roofs?" He knew her when she was a girl and he was a young man. And he says, "Yes, Hannah." So we have to send them papers. And so this is how it came about. And he wrote to us, and we wrote him back all the details, that we have a mother, Hannah Demrovs, and an older daughter with a husband, and the middle daughter with a husband, and I, and my single, and me, the single daughter. So came back papers like this. The 3 girls, they didn't marry officially. They married in chuppot. They had the chuppah, the Jewish wedding only. 2 sisters. So their names were their single name, their previous names, family names. So there was an Edith Friedman and Helen Friedman and a Giselle Friedman. They are students of Beis Yaakov. Okay, that's how the visa sounded. And then come the 2 Chatanim, the two sons-in-law, are going to be Rabbeim in that school. And my mother was supposed to be the Rebbetzin of the school. And after my brother-in-law was buried, a month later, she was in the 4th month. It was in May, April he died, May, the Jewish authorities called out very loudly and clearly, whoever papers are ready to leave, whoever was in Czechia at that point was packed to go, because the time became we were watching the news, and we knew that now it's going to be the countries, Eastern European countries will fall under the Iron Curtain will fall down soon. And they told us that the elections in February, past February already, were communist. So you know that this is going to happen. And so my mother and Duved, my brother-in-law, my other brother-in-law died and was buried in a big, huge field. 3 people were buried there. Big field. Only 3 people died of these Holocaust survivors. And the cemetery that had existed in the past, there were Jews everywhere, was, I don't know, plowed over. So the 3 of us, so they said, whoever papers are ready, leave right away. So my sister had buried her husband exactly 1 month ago. And it was terrible to live there. And my mother, as soon as we left, we didn't even talk about it. There was such a bahala, all this event. My mother and Duved immediately moved out of Cheb, the city where we lived, the town, and moved to Prague, because Prague was a big international city, and Prague, it's still the capital city, and there's maybe more protection, or I don't know what. In any case, all the Nitzolei Shoah that lived in the town where we lived, Cheb, maybe 150 nefashot altogether, Jewish people. And there was kosher meat and kosher everything. So, what do I want to say? We came to America. $100 in our hands. 3 people expecting a baby. Have nothing, no clothing, no nothing. Minimal everything. $100 was, in Europe for us it was a lot of money. In America it wasn't that nothing. Now we arrived, and the Jewish institutions took care of us. We came by aeroplane. This is the first plane that the Jewish organizations paid for to take refugees to Israel, because there is no time. And they said the aeroplane is waiting. And we left. And we arrived, and we were in a hotel there, 104th Street in Manhattan. And then we went to visit Duved Leib. He lived on the Lower East Side in a pretty awful little apartment. He had 1, 2, 3, 4 children, 5 children. And he was working still as a offset press in printing. And I remember I came alone at first, and they were very darling, very sweet, very warm, and accepting. I was alone. But a few weeks later, they said they want us to come for Shabbos. You know what this couple did? They accepted who survived. My mother is a real exception that she survived, Baruch Hashem. But other than that, the very young people survived only. There were a lot of youngsters without parents, without goals, okay? And they took them in one Shabbat. And I remember before Shabbat, Friday afternoon, they gave us peaches, fresh peaches with sour cream. Was it wonderful? And all night long I couldn't sleep because I was dreaming of those peaches, and I went close to the refrigerator, but I went back to sleep. I cannot go into someone's refrigerator. Wow. And then then we got an apartment that we paid $20 a month for, and that's a story of a book length. We didn't have a shower. There was no heat. Air conditioning, forget about. Heat. New York is cold in the winter. We had a bathtub in the kitchen, a tiny little kitchen, a gas stove, an ice box, not a electrified refrigerator, and a bathtub on 4 feet tall, covered up with a big metal plate. This served as the shayish. You have a shayish.
Sure.
You have a shayish to put pots on when you cook. We don't have anything like that. We have a table. That's the table. When we needed it, we put something over it, and that's where we cooked. And every morning we took baths because we didn't have a shower to take, where to take. And they brought the ice, and they brought, I don't know what else they delivered. And somebody held a towel over me, they shouldn't see me, because the refrigerator is here, and I'm taking a bath. Can you imagine?
Sure.
So, I mean, this is all really not very relevant. But at that time, a lot of the Nitzolei Shoah came to America and settled in the Lower East Side because this was the cheapest, most horrible neighborhood.
These were the survivors that came. The survivors, the Nitzolei Shoah, the survivors that came.
Survivors, right. They lived in the area, and many of them were from my town, from Khust. And they started coming on Shabbos night, Motzei Shabbos. They came, and we were joyful, and soon the baby was born, and everybody wanted to see a baby after the Holocaust. And so we had a pretty good life, but there was something terribly bothering us, how to bring my mother here. Okay, Duved, my brother-in-law, was with my mother. That was fine, at least they are together. But then the Israeli army sent delegates to enlist Holocaust survivors for the war. This was May, June 1948. And so David was happy to accept the invitation. He was happy to go to Israel. He was a Zionist. They were Zionists always from Poland. My mother remained there alone. And she always made good friends. It's not a problem. But we had this little darling baby. We didn't know what to do with the baby. So some neighbors who were survivors in our building, they came and they helped us, and they told us what to do and And David Leib and his wife brought us little baths and clothes and everything. But my sister, Artie, one day, she got a job as a maid in a very from family of a lawyer with 3 children, and she ran the house for them. She cleaned and cooked and fine and made money. And I worked in factories and the worst places. There's no jobs. And after work, she worked also on the Lower East Side, better place. And one day she came home with a big smile. We found the solution, how to bring mother here. We'll find a single Jewish man who is willing, from person, possibly, who will go to America, who will go to Czechia, to Prague, and marry my mother and bring her over. Okay, because as a citizen he can bring in a wife. And there was somebody who was going to do it. And the artist said, but the only but is that it should cost us $1,000. Now from $100 that we came with to live on to $1,000, where it was ridiculous. We laughed. Never will be able to get $1,000 anywhere to bring my mother here. Never. I mean, it was so impossible. This is something to learn from, really. And one of the guys who would come on Friday night to make his company said, I am going to give you the money. Because we told they were our friends. I am going to give you the $1,000. And we said, no. We'll never be able to repay it. This is not, no, we cannot do that. We will never be able to repay it. Fact. That's where we stood at that time. And so next day came and my sister said, I am not going to accept that money because he'll want to marry me after that and I don't want to marry him. He sensed it, that guy, and she said, I don't want anything from you. This is not, there's no strings attached to this $1,000. If there is one mother who stayed alive, who survived, she has to be with her children.
Sure.
And if you have the money, and if you want to pay me back, you do. That's whenever you have the money and you feel good about giving it back. If not, I forgive you. And mother arrived. Problem was afterwards that the guy didn't want to divorce her, because he had to divorce her. My mother wasn't ready to get married. But he did. And the fact was that I often thought about this. Did we repay this man? We gave him back the money very soon. Because when my mother came, she took over the house. And she was cooking, and she rented 2 rooms to boys from the Holocaust. And we all went to work, and we all worked and brought home money. And the money was paid back in no time. And we were loyal. He also got married. And I often went to Queens from Brooklyn. That's not easy in the public transportation. And afterwards he died, and she moved not far from us to Brooklyn. And we came to Israel And my sister, who was still living in Borough Park, went to this lady. She was totally alone. And she was, every Shabbos she was with her. She was under someone's care, and I feel good about it. This man was an angel, really sent by God.
That is unbelievable. A tzaddik, a real tzaddik. He was a tzaddik, a real...
He was a tzaddik. Okay.
So I just want to ask you, Gita, and it is amazing that when the German president came to Israel, it's nearly a year ago.
Oh, I started telling you a story. I started telling you what I told
in the panel.
About the panel in Amchayat. I'm going to thank you. So I said, I came like from a desert, a Torah desert, where I lived for 44 years. In a desert where we were religious, we stayed exactly the same as we were, my husband and I. My husband was Israeli. He let a little bit loose before he met me. You know, because he didn't find the intellectual level among ordinary people, and she went out with girls who were also maybe lighter on religion, but he came back and he davened in a shtibel in Borough Park, and we got a house there, and and then when my children were after finished high school, the girls were sent to sing, each one at his time, to Israel, first of all. They had been here before a few times because their grandparents were here. But then at 18 passed, they came to Michlala, which is a very good school. They learned wonderfully here, Torah, only Torah for a year. And when my son was 17, he finished yeshiva, high school, and he was sent here to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach.
In Kol Torah, in Beit Vagan.
Beit Vagan. He decided after 1 year, that was 1 year, and he declared to us in America that he's not coming back. He doesn't want to go back. And a young American rabbi told us, discussed, my husband came to visit the child, that he would be better off in a smaller yeshiva, not a big yeshiva like Kol Torah, which is here with Rav Shmuel Auerbach, his son. And that this is Marot HaTorah. And he came over and he stayed here 3 years. And then he met a girl, and we came to see her and see them and make an engagement party and then plan a wedding. And then he he bought a house, we bought him a house in Ramot. And the apartment and bought him a lot of things into the apartment, like refrigerator and sofas, fine. It amazes me, because when I met my husband the first day, and I told him I never went to school, really, and what kind of life we lived, and I wasn't the only one. Everybody who was from had to have this life. But, and he sneered at it, you know, made some kind of snide remark about how primitive we were. And when Zevi went into this kind of yeshiva. When Zevi went to high school, my husband made a real search for a high school, yeshiva high school, that would celebrate or at least mention Yom Ha'atzmaut. He wanted there to be, for Zevi, some kind of recognition of Eretz Israel as our home. He found something. It was the best available. But then when he went to, and he suddenly became, for a couple of years, I don't know, when he was 11, 12 maybe, he said, Abba, I don't have the Sitzfleisch, you know, Sitzfleisch.
To sit and to learn.
To sit, to learn Gemara for 2 hours. And then we sent him to a camp. It was a good camp, and one of his best friends was there. He came back, a totally changed individual. And then when he came to the yeshivot, he was so studious. He can learn hours for hours. And he undertook on by his own decision to study Dayanut. All the books. In, do you know, Stam, what do they call it? Stam. What is it called? An organization which teaches whatever you want to learn. Something Stam.
But he became a Dayan. Your son's a Dayan, yeah.
But that's what he learned. And what's beautiful about it, that he's being tested once a month and once in 3 months, something big. Once a month they have to somehow be tested on that month's learning, and once in 3 months he has to be tested on the 3 months learning. And this is the only institution where they do this. And I am very sorry to say that kids who just learn Gemara, I don't know whether they learn it as thoroughly as he did this. And he loved it, and he loves it, he really loves it. And I think he's recognized, at least by the Rebbe here. I wanted actually to ask you whether you have anybody, you have any contact, and don't ask Tzvi, or anybody that way, but whether you know somebody who is in a new area where they are looking for. He had some bad experiences recently with a certain community, not a community, no. He was in a Beis Din with a very well-known rabbi who is very, very, very honored in general, looked up to. And I felt, when I met him, when I came here, Zevi introduced me to him. He says, "Oh, Rav Zev, our Rav Zev, hu mamtik lanu et hashaot po." He makes our learning sweet. That's how he expressed himself. And I always interrogated Zevi. How much room does he give you in a case, a trial of expressing yourself? How much does he acknowledge your contribution? Because they have equal, and he always said, we have equal weight. There is the chief Dayan, and there are two younger rabbis. We are equally effective, we are allowed to express ourselves the same way as you, and no problem. So this is very good for him. And he came to this point where the rabbi is almost the chief man now. Something is being restructured, and he remained alone in that spot. Because the young man went over to the Rabbanut, and the chief rabbi went someplace else. Zevi is still running. The Rav has a kollel, an evening kollel, afternoon kollel, and Zevi is responsible for that. So that's also good. And he also has the best in. And if somebody comes to him, it isn't specifically the Rav, but he has more, what shall I tell you? I don't know. I don't know. I'm very unhappy.
Gita, can I ask, your daughter, she went to the Miklala, also in Beit Vegan.
Exactly, that's what I need. Miklala.
But your daughter was at the Miklala?
Yes.
The one in Beit Vegan?
Yes.
And you went there. They have every year. They have a commemoration. They have
yes, I go every year.
And I met you there. The one year you were there. I think you were there last year.
Every year I go.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know whether I'll go this year because the people who would bring me there, Zevi is translating the, what do you call, the one big book of Dayanut, Choshen Mishpat. You know about the Choshen Mishpat? He's translating it into English. It's going to have about 5 volumes in English. And he is working on it with a guy who lives in Baltimore over the telephone every day, about 2 hours.
It's very special.
But he's not, he would like to be somewhere, a Dayan, which is like a new place. He's very bright. His English is excellent.
Can you imagine? Sure.
And why can you imagine? He left America at age 17, and since then he's speaking Hebrew. But he learns, he reads, not much, unfortunately, in my eyes. Because his wife does not.
But Gita, having parents like you, can I just ask you, Gita, when I mentioned, you have a picture over here, if you could just show the picture. This was when the German president came to Israel.
Now I'll tell you about this.
Because this is a very big thing. I think it was it Johannes Rau, the president of Germany. The president of Germany came to Israel.
And yes, for 2 days. One day they were supposed to spend in Yad Vashem, where he would be with a certain crowd. I wasn't there. I was in the other crowd, where there was all the press of the world. They had little rooms, and every room was a important press.
They had many world leaders came for this event. There were many world leaders.
These were not leaders. They were the press.
But when he came, there were other leaders.
No, but I didn't. I skipped.
Okay.
I skipped the Holocaust people. Mm-hmm. This was, one hand was the press, and the other place was, I don't know what, the leaders maybe of the world.
Yeah.
But the day before, he asked to see some Holocaust survivors and talk to them. He would want one of them to tell him something, and when they told him, what is your wish, he would like not to talk about the bad things. He would like to talk about the future. Okay? So the gate to the future is the liberation, liberation. Okay? So that's good already. Doors are open. We are no longer prisoners. So that will be a more cheerful topic. Right? So he sent down to me, and he asked for me to speak in German that day. He wanted me to speak in German, not in English. And next to him was an excellent Israeli translator. And next to my side was Martin Auerbach, who is a psychiatrist from Vienna, and is a good friend of mine. And we were in Germany together in the past, and he wanted to help me out with my German if I have a problem. So I had to tell him about. So he came in and we shook hands, and his wife was also there. And then he said, so tell me about what was the liberation. And I told him. I told you, I spoke to you about it, I'm sure. And it was a nice day. And then the German man with the speaker told us, okay, there is whistling. The whistling, they whistle. And the whistle calls us every morning and every afternoon from the day we entered Birkenau until now, the end of the war. It's still the whistle that calls us to the Zählappell, which is the roll call, to be counted. So we were just, it's a Sunday. The day is Sunday, we don't work. We are back in the things, and they didn't call us 4 o'clock in the morning to assemble there. It was already the afternoon, I think, maybe 10, 12, I don't know, 1 o'clock. And they whistle. And we run out into a field that we didn't know because they had brought us here a week ago from our old place, because Hitler was coming closer to us, and they were afraid that whoever runs the camps didn't want these girls, the Jewish prisoners, to fall into a situation where there is war, where there are, what do you call it? Actual
conflict. There's fighting.
What do they call it?
There'll be compact, like fighting.
Yes. So they moved us a few tens of kilometers away from here the last a week, and we were in a new place in a camp of Jewish girls, like our camp was. There were 120, one of whom was my first cousin, and we shared their space, and we weren't familiar with this space. And then, so Sunday, May the 8th, and they whistle and we run and we try to organize ourselves in 5 per row, right? All the 320 girls. And the man with the speaker says, no need to set yourself up in 5s. Just stay the way you are. So we straighten ourselves out, and we see in front of us a row of SS in their Sunday uniforms, navy blue. What's happening here? And then the man said, we're standing still. They are still. And he says, today is May the 8th. Today the war was declared over. And you are free. And you can do whatever you want. And you can go wherever you want. We are here because we were asked to stay here with you until the Russian army arrives. And because we are only here to guard over you, we are asking you not to do us any harm. And I'm standing there, listening to it, like this. I said, I'm crazy. Why am I not singing and dancing? But maybe I'm crazy. Let me see what the others are doing. And I turn my head, and I see everybody's. No smile. I said, no, not even a smile. I've been waiting for this second for 6 years. 6 years the war lasted. And now, so I say to this Mr. what's his name? Steinmeier. I says, how can I smile? They said, I can go wherever you want to. Where do I want to go? Where can I go? Who will take us? Who will lead us? We don't have somebody who will say, like Moshe Rabbeinu, like I said to him, like Moshe Rabbeinu, who would take his folk and lead them to a place. There is no one like that. There is no promise of a place of milk and honey. Who is even going to give me my bread? Is there anyone who is going to care for me? That's where I ended the story. And he saw. And what happened was, yes, when we were the next day, I was in this press room house. These press people, called us one by one. There were many Holocaust survivors, and they called us in, and we were talking to them, and I spoke to England live. It was already in the evening almost, the end. And it was raining outside, and I was outside, and I don't know what I said, but I spoke all over. And a week later, he was very impressed. I gave him a book that was written. Do you know German?
From Yiddish a little bit.
No, wouldn't have. The book was written about me. I must have shown it to you. I don't have it now here because I gave it to a little German girl who comes to me every week. Today is her day. But today I didn't let her come. And she wasn't sure she should come because she came to do volunteer work in Israel.
Not Jewish.
Not Jewish. And she came, they sent her from Amcha to me because I'm older and they want her to help me. This is like being nice to me. And Yael said, you need a volunteer. You could be a volunteer yourself to somebody. No. But I said, I'll take her gladly. So she comes to me and I'm taking care of her very well. I tell her about all kinds of Jewish things and part of Jewish history and part of the Torah and part of... I'm teaching her what we went through. and she's appreciated me very much. And she also does volunteer work every morning in kindergarten with children with all kinds of problems. And she's very sweet, she's a very fine child. She's very intelligent for a 19-year-old girl. She's very mature. And so I told her.
Does she ever speak about her grandparents or?
Yes, everybody I ask. I don't know whether I told you. One time in Amcha, that was many years ago when I was still working in Amcha. It was many years ago. And every time people came from all over the world, especially people with whom I can talk, they speak my languages, they call me and talk to them. So I came in and I started telling, this was a commune. You know what's a commune? Of Germans from about 25 to 35, let's say, and they were all kinds. There was somebody who was a professor and somebody who was a worker with his hands, all kinds, girls and boys. But they were intelligent, all. And they came, and I said, I must go, I have work to do here. But if somebody wants to really hear me, tell me a story, you have to come to my house. And I gave them the address. And they came at 9 o'clock because I had a shiur from 8 to 9, 7:30 to 8:30. And I was going to give it up for German people. So I said 9 o'clock. And they came and stayed till 2 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And it was an experience for me. They came in, first thing, one of the most intelligent, the one who was the academic, asked me what the mezuzah is. And I told him, fine. And then they sat here and they ate, and I told them my story. And I asked for comments and questions, and this most academic person asked me, he said, you say that you are religious. How did this affect you? Didn't this affect? How could you survive? And I told him what I think. And then another boy who wore jeans, he was one of the simplest kind, said, you don't know how grateful I am to you for telling me this story. Nobody ever wanted to, nobody ever answered me in my family, in all the generations, when I asked him about it. So I'm very glad.
Gita, can I just ask you, because this is the pivotal question, how did you remain from? How did you and your family remain from? Because
there was a very nice movie made. This was at the very beginning after I came here. It was at the beginning of this century. Whoever needed references about the Shoah, about those who talk about the Shoah, go to Amcha, because they deal with Holocaust survivors and they hear their stories. So one woman, many newspapers had articles about me. even recently. But so when they go to them, they refer to me. Now what did I want to tell you?
With Emuna, how
No.
you
This woman, probably a teacher, I don't know what she was. She came, she wants me to tell her about the Auschwitz, about the story. And she talked and talked. She asked and asked and asked and asked. And for hours she was here, and then I said, what do you need this for? Who are you and what do you need this for? We don't know yet what we want to do with this information. But we are trying to do something with it. Maybe a movie. And she left. And then she came back and she said, we are decided to make a movie out of it. And the title will be, I don't know the title, but the topic will be actually the religious issue. Where was God? And we chose you also as one of the people who will be talking. And then she said, I have the material and now we'll come with the cinematographer and we'll take a few pictures and then we'll make the movie. So she came. And she came and she told me then that we decided to take 4 different samples of people, those who had been religious and remained religious, those who, the 2x2 that you learn about. This is, the one is religion and one is remaining or having lost it. So those who were religious and stayed religious, those who were religious and left, those who, were not religious and remained, these who were not religious and changed.
And became religious.
Or,
Wow.
no, they just
Okay, they just changed the
lost it. And I was the first cubicle. And so she asked me many things, and you are asking me. I don't know, I really am I'm not a philosopher, and I cannot tell it to you, never had to think about why I am, no, I'm not that kind of person. I just feel it from inside, and this is what I am. And when I was 8, or even younger, I knew I believe in God, I love God very much. I tell you a cute story. I was in Poland recently. It was in the last year and a half, one of the schools. And you know that we go to the Tarnów and to the village where the kids call Yar HaYeladim.
Yeah, I was there.
You were there, that's why I'm telling you. I know you were there. You must have been there. And that's a very, very heartbreaking
Very difficult.
situation.
Very
Really,
difficult.
children are so taken by it. They're being told. You were there with children?
Not really, but there were other groups, Israeli groups with children.
They are being told, dispersed. There's plenty of beautifully little yard, a beautiful little forest.
Yeah.
Disperse and just think about how what you are feeling. And there are many kids who break down and cry and cry and cry. And I go over to them and try to talk to them and try to make them talk to me. And then I say, you know what, to one of the girls, come to me in the evening before you go to sleep. Come and I'll talk to you. I'll find out, I'll see why you are crying. Because there is sometimes something very personal behind the present. I mean, everything is, we know that, associated in one's thinking. And so, in the night, she's not coming. And I was there with my daughter that time. And because I always have a company. And she's already in bed, and I just lie down in bed, and the girl comes and says, oh, you are already in bed, now I have to go. No, come and talk to me. And I said, so what touched you so much? What was it? And she says, I have a problem. The problem is that I love God very much. And I burst out in laughter. And I say, you know what? That's exactly my problem. Because I also love him very much. And we laughed, and then I got out and I gave her a big hug, and she left with a big smile. And this is, okay, so when I was a little kid, I know that I love God. I didn't even imagine, I didn't learn anything spiritual about God, because I didn't learn in a Jewish school. So my mother or my father could have said something to me, explain, but it wasn't deep enough, it was nothing. I knew that God is there watching me. And what I knew throughout the camp years, and my mother was very helpful. She was so good. She was not very serious about halakha. She's, a normal Jewish housewife. But she wasn't, that wasn't her thing. It was a totally emotional thing about, he's there for me, he's there. I know he's there. I know he's watching out for me, kind of thing. And this is what she brought through to me, what was helpful. But never did I have, knowingly, cognitively, never did I have a feeling, Efo haya Elokim.
Wow.
That was the tape.
Where was God? Yeah.
That was the title of this movie. And I tell you about the person whom I found very interesting. This was the person who had not been religious and became religious. What was her story? Her story was that once the Germans raided her house and she managed to escape to the roof of the house, and the roofs were pitched, and she was lying down on the, what do you call these pieces that
it's like a raft, the raft of the roof, or planks of the roof.
Yeah. Anyway, she was lying down on it because she didn't want it. It was already evening, maybe it wasn't. But maybe it was, let's say, in the afternoon, she wanted to hide that she shouldn't be seen from the street being on the guards. So she had to, so here are the, what do you call them, that collect the water.
The gutters. Gutters.
Yes. And so in part this would hide her, but she was slowly the night came, and it was night, and she's moving on this gag.
On the roof? The roof?
The roof, yes. She feels that she's stumbling over something. Something is there. And it was a Sefer Torah.
Wow.
That somebody had placed there to hide it from the Germans. And she took it with her.
Wow.
And now she's walking with it. And she waited till everybody was away, and she got down. And she kept this, this was with her the whole time, when she was hiding somewhere. I don't know what happened in there. I don't know precisely what her story was, but this made her a Jew.
Wow. So this is unbelievable. Sure. Wow, wow. I just want to do one thing. I just have to, for 1 second. I'm just going to sit on the side. So Gita, here we have a picture of you with the German president when he came to Israel.
I didn't end.
Okay. I just want to say something just quickly about this, that who would have believed that...
I'll tell you something else. I told you not to tell this to anyone. I got a prize from the Germans. The highest prize, I was told, that Germany bestows. I got it over a month ago. I didn't get the prize. I just got a letter saying that the president recommended me to...
Shoo. So Gita, to think that you were in Auschwitz and what you went through, and here the president of Germany who came to Israel met with you.
To me, this is...
It
I'll tell you what, but I tell
Gita,
you
it is the
something
greatest...
else. A week after he had been here, and he spoke very nicely, I sent a letter to him. Do you want to hear that letter?
Of course, of course.
It just happened. I have the letter that he sent me, but I'm not going to.
So here you have a picture with you and the President of Germany, His Excellency Frank-Walter Steinmeier, and you wrote this beautiful letter on March the 23rd, 2020 to the President of Germany, and it's the most magnificent letter that you read out. And not known, you didn't know this, but on the 16th of March of the same year, 2020, this was hand-delivered to you, but I think it took time because it was written and then it was sent to the German embassy. It's from the President of Germany, and it was sent to the German embassy in Tel Aviv. And here is embossed with the emblem of Germany, and it's from Berlin. The President of the Bundesrepublik of Deutschland, Germany, Frau Giselle Cycowycz, Cycowycz, Jerusalem. Dear Mrs. Cycowycz, thank you again for your book. My wife and I are humbled and deeply grateful to have met you and your fellow Shoah survivors. We were moved that you opened up your hearts and shared your dreadful experiences with us. Your stories will always stay with us. I admire your strength and courage. I'm impressed that despite the fact that you yourself are a survivor of the Shoah, you help other survivors to overcome their trauma. I would like to wish you good health and well-being so that you can continue providing psychological help as long as possible. And yours sincerely, and he signs it, Frank Walter Steinmeier. And here's the picture with you and the President of Germany. And Gita, who would have thought that when you were in Auschwitz-Birkenau and when you were sent to the labor camp, when you were for 12 hours and you were walking in the snow, that one day the President of Germany would come and speak with you? And
I must tell you another story about Germans.
Okay.
Two little stories. Okay. When I arrived, after great sorrow, because my mother was taken away from us in Birkenau, when I left for this labor camp. And we decided not to cry about her and not to talk about her. So it was very hard. But then, when we arrived, we were taken almost immediately to work. We walked 4 kilometers in snow, in rain, in bad weather, with very bad, very poor shoes, almost no shoes, and started and were taught that night. It was a night shift, and I worked on a lathe machine and until 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we walked back to the camp, and so it was the whole week. And at the end of the week, I declared that I survived Auschwitz, Birkenau, but I will not survive this kind of life. Working for 12 hours standing and working with my arms lifted to the machine. But the next week I was to be in day shift. And I come into work and start working on the machine, a little more hopeful because it was daytime and daylight and I could see the world. And maybe I was already not so tired and not so taken by the fact that my mother was taken away from us. And that day, the supervisor, who probably was German, who supervised 5 machines, each one of which were operated by one of our kids, one of our young girls. There were kids, there were prisoners of 15, I was 17, until about the age of 32 at most. That was the highest. And the supervisor came over to me with a yellow pad, a pencil, and the piece that I was producing on my machine. It's a little screw-like thing, about 5 centimeters long. And he asks me in German, I was talking to him in German, and he asks me, kannst du zeichnen? Can you draw? And I said, what does zeichnen mean? Because that kind of sophisticated word I couldn't have learned in my German. And he said, yes, here is this piece, and here's the pencil, and here is the pad, and he explained to me that I have to do a drawing of this piece. And I drew a perfectly decent drawing, which I say now after I had worked about 6-7 years as a draftsman, as a designer, almost engineering work in America, where I went without learning anything, without ever having entered the high school. And he was very satisfied and took me up with an SS walking behind us to the engineering office. There were 2 or 3, I think 3 German women who were the draftsmen there. And then a very high-ranking, very good-looking, very impressive-looking, frightening-looking, high German officer who was the engineer, the boss of this office. And he didn't look at me. For sure he didn't look at me. Not eye contact, ever. 7 months I worked for him. Never did he make eye contact with me. And anyway, he mumbled something to the person who brought me up, and he nodded, and I was supposed to stay there and begin learning how to draw. Now, after about a week or so, and the SS wanted to sit there because he had to sit and watch over every single prisoner. But they told him, not here, not here. And he had to go down. And so I was working only among people. And after a week or 2, somebody new came into the office. It was a man of about maybe 55. He spoke German, and he was from Luxembourg, and he was an engineer, and he was also a prisoner. But he was not Jewish, so they allowed him to have a little apartment, and his wife came with him. And they had different kind of prisonership than I had. And he was told to teach me how to draft. And he did. And we became very good friends. And we worked together for 6 months. And he asked me all kinds of questions about where I learned. And I taught him a very achi kind of school in a primitive town, and where we barely learned a little bit of mathematics. We couldn't go to gymnasium, to high school, because we were religious Jews, and we had to go to school on the Sabbath with our books, and they didn't go. So they made, and most of the kids didn't fit into that school because they, educationally, I mean, they couldn't pass the test that would require them, that they would be required to give. So there was a system of 4 elementary schools or 5 elementary classes, and 4, it was called Občanská škola, that means citizens' school, where they taught a little bit of algebra and foreign languages. We learned a little German, a little Ukrainian, and also, so that was enough. But this man didn't believe that I didn't go to a regular high school. He never asked me, never saw me eat. We were together 10, 12 hours every day. Never asked me, don't you have a sandwich or something to eat? Never asked me. He never saw me in a different dress than the one I was wearing. And he didn't know that I slept in the same dress, because that was the call boy, the only thing I had. One day, never, and I'm sure not because he didn't care for me. He was afraid to ask. One day, he came in the morning, and can I put this down? brings me a little paper bag, open on the top, a little paper bag, and in it are potatoes, tiny little potatoes, unwashed, uncooked. I didn't know what he thought, where I could cook it, but he gave it to me. And I thanked him, and I take out a potato and start eating it, the way it was. And he looks at me, and then says, and then turns around and walks out to the other room. And I heard him crying there.
Wow.
Mr. Faber. I could never track him down. He was such a good person. And we talked politics, and we talked justice, and we talked all kinds of things besides learning a real profession. And I tell you the sequel to this. Of course, then he left, and I couldn't track him down. And 1948, we arrived in America. And we weren't allowed to work because we didn't have the green card. So I worked in all kinds of illegal places. People who took me in because they knew because somebody knew them. All kinds of things, factories, all kinds of places. And one day, I went past a employment office, Koach Hadam, they call it here, an employment office, in a street in Manhattan. And I opened the door from the street, and I step in, and at the back of this big room, there was a little desk, and a man is holding the New York Times, which is this big. And he sticks his head behind the New York Times and says to me, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yes, I'm looking for a draftsman's job." And he says, "Ha ha ha. Even engineers would like to get draftsmen's jobs. No jobs." And that's how it was until 1950. And one night, on a Saturday night, we went out on the town to see a movie or something with friends. And the man in our midst looks in the newspapers. Tomorrow's newspapers came out in the night, it was midnight or something. And he says, North Korea and South Korea went into war, and America got involved in that war. Wow. And the next day, not next day, but maybe 2 days later, the newspapers were full of advertisements. Engineering jobs and draftsmen's jobs and designers' jobs and all kinds of places. And I think DuPont had a big ad in the paper where they were looking for draftsmen. And I came in, I don't know where I learned the word draftsman because I really didn't know what I've learned. But I went in and I said, "You're looking for draftsmen. I learned something, but I don't know what it was. But I'm willing to work for you for free. And you tell me whether what I know is fitting for you or not." And 4 days later, on a Thursday, they gave me a salary. And I worked there for a few years as a draftsman. And then I was already designated as a designer, mechanical designer. And then That was 1950. 1955, the Sochnut, the Jewish agency, offered a student, what do you call it, exchange program, where they took some students from Israel here and sent some there, whoever wanted to. I wasn't a student, and I was 28 or something at that point, or 27. And I came to Israel the first time in my life on a Jewish boat where I learned Hebrew. But in 2 weeks, because I knew a lot of words and I knew a lot of grammar, but I didn't know how to talk. And there, everybody talked Hebrew, and it was called SS Jerusalem, the boat, and it was wonderful, full of fun and full of love of these Israeli people. And then I worked for almost a whole year to the electric company in Tel Aviv, Rehov HaChashmal, off Allenby, with a German engineer who was the man, the head of this office. One more thing I want to tell you about the labor camp and about Mr. Mertes, Herr Mertes, the boss, the engineer. He never made eye contact with me. I told you that.
Yeah.
Never. He came and went, and the German girls stood like this and gave him their hands. Good morning, Herr Mertes. Good morning, Herr Mertes. That was every day and every night when he left. And he never looked at me, never. And one day, after about 6 months, and we stopped working. There was no more work because the war was really ending. And the war. And I came in, probably it was the last day, and he had a little stick, and he, like to a dog, you know, you do this. He wanted for me to come because he wants me somewhere near his desk. And then he showed me at the desk, and he showed me he had a rag there to wipe, and I understood that he wants me to wipe his desk. It was beautifully shining. And then he points with his stick on a little package over there, a little packed package with in paper food. I had told my sister, I will know that the war is going to be over if he will give me a piece of bread, because most of the the supervisors, most of the people who had girls working for them, gave him once in a while a piece of bread. He knew what I was getting every day for food. And I'm afraid, and he goes like this, he didn't know how to explain to me that this is a gift from him to me. And he goes like this, and finally I touch it, and I look at him, and he says, yes, yes, and I took it. It was the best food ever in my life. It was little sandwiches, Brötchen they call it in German, thin little bread, and yet some kind of meat, chazer, that was in it. And I went home, and I didn't touch it. I just smelled it. And then I waited for another 20 hours until my sister and my cousin came home from work, because they were in a different shift. When they came in, we divided it and we had it. But I didn't touch it. And my cousin Lily, who lived in Israel, who immigrated to Israel, Miyad, said, she could never understood. How I totally did not have any temptation to touch, to taste it, to eat a morsel of that bread until the two came home, because it belongs to all of us.
Gita, I'll just tell you, this actually exemplifies who you are. This is the person that you are. Pure goodness, and this is really, Hashem saved you, and you were given all these nisim because of who you are and who your parents brought you up.
No, I don't, maybe.
Pure goodness, wow. Well, for me, it's been the greatest zchut in the world, the greatest honor to hear you, and it's just been unbelievable, Gita, and I'm so incredibly grateful to you. And you should just have mazel and brocha, and it's just been incredible. And thank you so much.
It was a pleasure talking to you, and I'm telling you that you were leading me on and on and on, and I spoke more, and I don't know, at length and in detail, because you permitted it, and because you asked the right questions. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
But Gita, is this the longest that you've ever spoken?
No, dear.
You've spoken longer.
A week ago, on Motzei Shabbat, today, you know, maybe you don't know, I don't know how old your children are, but there is some kind of a rule in the high school, Jewish high schools, religious high schools, for every student, somewhere around Yud Aleph, the senior year, no, the junior year of high school, at age 17, that is, that they must interview a Holocaust survivor, write it down as in detail as they can, and this is their composition, or call it avodah, they call it. And they write it, and I had here 4 boys from Chorev Boys High School.
My girls went to Chorev.
Pardon?
My girls were at the girls' school, Chorev.
Your girls?
My girls were at Chorev, the girls' school.
Well.
So my eldest daughter is 30. My eldest daughter is 30 years old, and she was in Poland.
How old is she?
She's 30. 30 years old, and she went
30?
to Poland. Yeah.
I may have been with her. Ask her whether Gita. They called me Gita there.
Wow.
But anyway, they were here, and one of the mothers the mother of one of them was also here. She asked me, could she come and listen? They came at 6:30 and they left at 12.
Wow.
And the lady said she must come back because there are some things that she still needs to add.
Gita, I just want to thank you again, and I just want to show to all our viewers. So this picture with you and the German president, and the letter from the German president to you, it's unbelievable. It went hand-delivered from the German embassy, and your beautiful letter to His Excellency Frank Walter Steinmeier. But you tell the story of the one gift, the one bread that was, you must have been starving. You must have been, when you were given that little gift of bread and you kept it for over 20 hours to share with your sister.
Of course.
That's really who you are, Gita.
I would have felt, I am very big on, very strong on morality and on thinking morally, as Rav what's his name, Lau talks about. He has an article in yesterday's paper which says faith, how does he say it? Is somebody who is religious, a faith,
It's true. It's faith.
a nation of faith,
Yeah.
or a people of faith is a people of morality,
Yeah.
of morals, yes. And I wish more would be handed over and received by the youngsters.
Well, I'm very proud to say that my eldest daughter did go to Poland and she was in Chorev, and my younger daughter worked with Holocaust survivors in Renana. She did her Shirat Lomi with Holocaust survivors
She
in
didn't
Renana.
go to Chorev.
She was, and then she went to Tzvia Maniot for the house.
I work with them also. How old is she now?
She's 27.
Oh, because last year they had a production of Fiddler on the Roof, and they came the year before, the Tzvia for Manut.
My daughter was there. She was.
No, but this is now,
many years ago.
last year, and so I'm very close to the
Wow.
Tzvia also. And when they put on the Fiddler on the Roof, they asked me to be the Rebbe.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I have a nice picture of a big package in the
But Gita, it's been the greatest honor, the greatest chut in the world, and from the bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful to you. I really am. And you should just admire Vestrim plus mom, not only 120 but more, in good health, happiness, and nachas, and all of Hashem's blessings that you so deserve. You so deserve, Gita.
Let me tell you another one, because I think that this really I never talked about. I had nothing to do with anything I was talking about before. But when I came to Czechoslovakia, to Prague, when we went to Heb, and then I went to Prague, and they called me, I think that's where my time went to. On 2 occasions, they sent me to the mountains. Czechia has beautiful mountains, Krkonoše, beautiful mountains, and they have sanatoriums in these places. And they knew I was a Holocaust survivor, so I must have some problems. But at that time, I did have some problems, very big problems. One day, I took a picture in a studio, and when I got the picture, it said like torso. And when I got those pictures, that picture back, and I said, I have Bazadov's disease. Do you know what it is? No, you don't know that word. That was the name of this illness. Bazadov's disease is hyperactive thyroid. And how do I know from looking at my picture that I have Bazadov's disease? I was then 21 years old. I heard about it. I read about it. I saw it somewhere written. My eyes, ex-ophthalmos. You know that expression?
Yeah.
As a doctor, ex-ophthalmos. The eye is sort of, what do you call it?
It's protruding. It's
Protruding, that's right. And on that picture, I looked typical. And I was very sick for 4 years. And nobody could do anything for me. Only they could operate. And in Czechia, they did not want to operate, but every few weeks, they took this measurement of how hyperactive I was. I was 60% hyper, the output of the
thyroid.
66% from the highest point. And I was in a German DP camp for half a year because my sister went there and I went to visit her. And my mother and the rabbi of that place got very friendly with me. He was a European rabbi, Heimish rabbi. He came to tell me he sent some letters to my mother to come and pick me up because I'm very sick. He discovered. He came to me on Erev Tisha B'Av and told me, you do not dare to fast on Tisha B'Av. I said, but I'm fasted all the time and nothing happens to me. And he says, just don't you fast. But my mother came to pick me up and to take me home. And somebody said, look, you are near München, near Munich, which is one of the big hospitals, big professors there. Take her, let them examine her. So she took me there. And I was standing next to this professor, and he said, lie there, sorrowfully. We cannot do anything for her except to operate her.
Why?
This is a German doctor, half a year after Auschwitz. He can only operate on me like this. And I bolted from that place and ran out. I don't even want to see him. And then much later, 3 years later, I went to America, and the organization that received us, the Women's States, some women's organization, it's part of the Sochnut. And they received us, and we told them that I am sick and I couldn't. And she said, now you will go, and they gave me the address of Beth Israel Hospital. And you go there, and there's a clinic. And so I went there, I made the appointment and went there. And there's a clinic, an outside clinic. A lot of doors with all kinds of doctors. And they looked at me and they called all the doctors together. Look at this specimen. He made me stretch out my hands and close my eyes. And my fingers were like this at age 21 or 22. And my eyes were like this. And they operated on me, and they really did this. I have a sign of it. And it was as if they would take the illness and threw it away, from one day to the other.
Baruch Hashem.
You know what hyperactive thyroid is? It's like I would take a high dose of amphetamines. I was full of activity and full of everything went through me like double speed. And I have one more thing.
Oh, Gita,
I was working in a factory on little babies' hats. And I could not fall asleep, no matter when I went to sleep. I could not fall asleep until 5 o'clock.
Oy.
And then I had to get up because I had to travel to Greenpoint or someplace in Brooklyn to get to work at 8 o'clock. And I couldn't do it. I just could not do it with the not sleep. That's what I slept every night. 1 hour or 2 hours. And then I said, then I went over to the boss. I was the only white person in that factory room, working something on a machine. And I said to him, could I ask you for something? I have this problem, I cannot fall asleep until morning. And could you please allow me to come an hour later? And I will leave an hour later. And he said to me, my child, this is not a job for you. They were all black people, this is the lowest level work there is, probably. But this is what I had to get, because I'm not fit for anything else. And then go and look for yourself for a different job. This is not for you. I cannot do it. And then they did the operation. And
thank God. Wow.
And what I did for the telephone, for the Hashmal for the electric company here, I was doing mechanical design for them.
Wow.
And so this was already, okay.
Gita, I just want to ask the very last thing. What advice, you've been through, no one's been like what you've been through. In the Shoah, what you've gone through, your difficulties and the Nissim and everything that's happened to you. What advice would you give to your grandchildren and to the next generations? What advice would you give? What message can you impart onto future generations?
But the one thing that I'm working very hard to impart, and it's very difficult. I was working on myself for a very long time, about to subdue anger in me. To subdue anger. Because I lived in my childhood, in my young years, I lived with a lot of angry people. Good people, but angry people. And that anger is such a poison. What was it? I was listening to a shiur this week. Now I don't know which shiur this was. Revising maybe. Would be good for you. It's on a Zoom. He's a genius of a man. Okay, I'll tell you about
Weiss. About Asher Weiss?
No. I will tell you later about it. But he's talking about Sefer Kuzari. He just began this series on Zoom. He taught us. I was studying with him for 28 years. First 3 times a week, and then twice a week. And now it's once a week. He just started. He's a brilliant man, most conscientious. He will not say a letter, a word, that he doesn't have the backing of the Perek and the Parsha and the word where it is found in the Gemara or in Rambam or Ranban, or very, very loyal and very true and wonderful lecturer. And he was talking about Sin'ah.
Sin'ah is basically hatred.
Sin'ah is hatred. And the comment I had to him was, yes, that as evil, as sin, as Sin'ah, no, or not as, he was not talking about anger, he was talking about maybe Sin'ah as very evil thing. And I said that I find that anger, chaos, is so powerful and so destructive. And when one person has the tendency to shout out and shut up the other person, the opponent, run away and let him not express the anger. There's so many bad things. You know, one loses his rationality, his normal character when he's angry. And nobody, it's not known. It's when I came home, when I came home from the camp, and they asked me, I told them about the Yom Kippur story, where somebody found obtained a Yom Kippur Machzor on Erev Yom Kippur in Auschwitz in Birkenau, and started reading it on Kol Nidrei evening. She's a young girl like I was, and she read it, and she sort of chanted it. And 1,200 girls who were in that barrack began crying. Some of them never knew about God. Some of them never knew about Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah. They were just plain denier of God. Came from mishpachot that didn't teach them about God. And I asked the girl to lend me the book because it was a translated Machzor, and I wanted to look at the Avinu Malkeinu, because I knew how to daven, and I davened, but I didn't understand anything about what I davened. But I remembered that the Avinu Malkeinu is written in such simple terms, and I knew some of the terms, and I understood it, and this was something that would help me, because they are fixed in a sentence, you know, the tefillot. And it was translated, so I could read it in German or whatever other language that I mastered. And so I found myself, Tehei Hasha Zot Shat Rachamim. And this happened on Yom Kippur. And I told you that 2 weeks later, my mother was with us when they were taking her away. And I kept saying, Tehei Hasha, Avinu Malkeinu, Tehei Hasha Zot Shat Rachamim, Beit Ratzeh Milfanecha. And again and again and again I read. And I said, Baruch Hashem, am I still next to us? Am I still here? And they took her. But we found her at home. Because God did such a miracle with her. This I didn't tell you. When I found out that my mother is alive in Khust, this was about half an hour's ride or 1 hour's ride from Khust. Somebody called out from the train that I was looking at, because it had come from the direction of Khust, of my town. And he said, Wer bist du? Who are you? I was standing at the door of a train opposite our train. And I just looked in because I knew it came from the Khust area. And I went through every cabin to look, and I didn't find anyone. And suddenly I arrived at the 5th door, and the man over there calls out, Wer bist du? He knew how to speak to me in Yiddish. And I said, I want to tell you that I know who you are. I will tell you who I am. You are Mr. Heimfeld from Khust. And he says, Ja, aber wer bist du? And I said to him, my father is Wolf Friedman. And he says, dein Mama is in der Heim.
Sure.
And
no, your mother's in the home. She's in the house.
And this moment, the man got out of this train. He started out to travel to Budapest. But he came to our train, took us home to find our mothers, because we couldn't have found her. Because she wasn't living in our, she couldn't live in our house. And the Jewish community, which was liberated, Hus was liberated in October, November by the Russians, and some people began coming home from both the Ukraine, the Russian front, and from the camps, some of the camps that were liberated in January. So my mother arrived. Okay, so I'll tell you what happened to her. So they established Kehila right away. When they came home, the boys, and they went through Jewish apartments as much as they could to find places where they could place people when they will be coming home. They have to go somewhere to stay. And what did I want to say?
So you were going to see your mother, and when you came back, they organized a kehila.
Yeah. No, there was a kehila. I told you about my apartment. I told you the books of my father. Did I?
No.
I didn't tell you in my story. When I came back, okay, here's the place. I just told you. I met this man who told me my mother is in Hus, and he took us to her. And she wore a shaitel, first of all. Probably the first thing that she got when she got to Hus is a wig.
Okay.
Because she was so used to it. And then, so we went to live with her, stay with her in a man's house, very nice little house. Nobody touched it. It wasn't on the main street like our house. But our house, we went to look at it.
Gita, can I just ask you, when you saw your mother after, this is more than a year of separation?
No, it wasn't more than a year.
Or just under a year?
It was like from October.
Okay, it's a couple of months.
To almost July, almost a year.
Almost a year that you hadn't seen your mother, and you didn't know that she was alive. You didn't know that she was alive?
Of course I didn't know.
And now when
the man told me,
that must have been the most. It must have been the most.
Like the whole world could have heard my screaming.
It must have been the most amazing moment in your life to know that your mother is alive. And how was when you saw her?
She was standing. I remember she was standing on a stairwell outside, had in her hand a hand-sewn little sack from cloth with a string, in it cookies that she had been making. Like she was standing with a shaitel, her face made up. She looked beautiful. She had cheeks, the most beautiful thing on earth.
That must be one of the most happiest days of your life.
Of course.
Yeah. And what a nice
Many happy days.
What a nice that you met this man on the train that you knew. It's such an what are the chances of that happening?
All of this was miraculous. Now I'll tell you where she went when they took her from us. Okay? We thought these 8 women, 7 women, and the little 14-year-old girl who was the daughter of one of the women. These were all from Hust, friends and 2 cousins, 2 related people. were there, relatives of my aunt, my husband, my father's sister was with my mother, and another cousin. And they are taking them away, and we know that at every selection, the people were being taken straight to the gas chambers. But this was a half a year later, and nobody came anymore to Auschwitz. So they didn't have to use all this series of gas chambers. Yes, when my father came with 200 men, other men, then they opened up the gas chamber to let a few people in and send them to heaven, but not in general. So when my mother was taken away, this was late, very late. This is a half a year before the end of the war almost. And so where did they take them? Not to the gas chambers. They took them back to the camp where we were, the sea camp. And that's where my father came and sent this message that I am being taken to my death. And what happened, that Hitler decided to run from the Russian war. He gave up, and he was running toward Germany, and the Russian army is running after him to trap him. And the Allied forces are coming from the other direction, from the western position. This is going from the east, and they are coming like this, okay? But what I want to tell you, that a few days later, when they were in the sea lager, Hitler realized that his time is over, and he died. What shall I tell you? At that point, it was maybe 3 months later. He killed himself. When we were transported, what did I want to tell you first to finish this thought? So Hitler was running, and in Hust, what happened? The boys came home, and they make some kind of order, the Jewish boys, and of course nobody dared to start requesting property back from the people who lived there, who occupied our houses. And it was a terrible situation, but when we saw our house with all the boards, floorboards, standing up, because they were looking for gold and silver that we were hiding, and there were puddles all over, because the roof. There may have been a bomb that fell in this house, because the roof was broken, and inside were puddles. The rain was coming in straight. And on this wet floor, and over there is the closet, the cabinet, book cabinet of my father's, totally empty of books, but books sitting all over this room, open, and on each book there is feces. Somebody made purposely, it was not accident, somebody made it dirty, purposely, intentionally, every single book, so that I could not take a book of my father's with me. This kind of desecration.
And this was the local people?
Of course. Of course the local people. Of course, they were the worst. I told you how they took out, when we were walking to the railway station to go to Auschwitz. We were walking through the city, and we saw little houses where there was the ghetto. This street was a ghetto, and there are houses one next to the other. The windows are eyesight level, because they're little houses. And behind there, through the windows, we see people walking. People were walking in that house. They were cleaning it out. That was 2 days after we had cleaned out, and the same day, but these people left either yesterday or the day before, and they came and fell upon it and took everything away. And why not? If they wouldn't come, then others would come. They cleaned out every Jewish house thoroughly. But this, what they did, how they desecrated our house. And this I also may have told you, in the marketplace, people were holding a marketplace where there were tables, where on market day, every day, the peasants would bring in their produce, and the woman was holding, like this was the table, Gemara, beautifully, what do you call it, karuch. It was bound.
Bound, yeah.
In like a pale color, like beige, light beige or pink color, leather bound set of Gmarot. Because when a well-to-do person married off his daughter, his son, then he had to, the other party gave him shas, beautifully bound shas, or maybe the parents themselves, I don't know. And they were tearing pages to cover the cibelas, the vegetables.
They were using it like wrapping paper.
Yeah, that's what they used. Gemara pages. Can you imagine that?
Are there any Jews that are still living in the town today?
Well, there is a whole generation of people who arrived in America some years ago, maybe 30 years ago, and to Israel. And here there exists a group, they are united, a group who were all brought up in Karpato Rus, some in Chus, some in Munkac, some in Ungvar, and they were sent to Kiev and to other places to study in the university. These are children of people like I am, who had come to Chus and wanted to stay in Chus. They are not originally from Chus, they're not originally from Munkac, but let me just give a... They are not, they lived in the villages. There are many, many villages scattered beautifully. I told you probably how Chust looks. We have a mountain, one mountain. It's like a cone, upside down cone. On the top, there are remains of walls of something, what do you call those, a misgav, something that an observation point, because this is the highest point in the large valley that people looked at when they are on the top of the mountains. We went there every Shabbos. We went up and we saw a beautiful, beautiful scenery. We saw two big rivers, one big river and one a smaller big river, like two silver streaks. And around villages live small, and they all have a church, and they all have a lahavdil, a synagogue. And so these people lived in these villages, and they were very important in those villages. They were the general store proprietor, and they were the rich people. And they didn't want to go away. They didn't have the koyach to go away. They came from the lagers, and they came from the Russian front, being those slave laborers. And so they moved into Khust and Munkaj and Ungvar and the largest, only in the large. They were afraid to live alone among Goyim. We did not trust them at all. But they lived in Khust, and their kids came out all speaking Ukrainian, because it's Ukraine now. And they had invited me, maybe they are, I don't look at my email because I cannot see it, and made me part of them and tell them how it was before they came there. And these people managed to escape here, and they're very useful too, very helpful to Israel. They are all educated. They're highly educated in the high-tech field, in the medical field, and in the academia.
And Gita, did you ever go back to your town? Did you ever?
Yes, I went back.
How many years ago?
About 7-8 years ago.
Was it very difficult to go back?
Well, I went with my 3 children, and 1 daughter-in-law, and 1 grandson, and 1 niece who wanted to go. And it was wonderful. The children would like to go back, and I would like to go back, because I couldn't find my house. It was in a central place, much like today, you know, the Ben Yehuda square there. That's where we lived. A 2-story building. The store was downstairs. We had a beautiful apartment upstairs, really beautiful, very nicely decorated. My mother was really an artist. And I couldn't find it. And we started looking one day. We went in the backyards, and every backyard was changed. I couldn't find anything of mine, of ours. And when I came back and looked through the pictures that we took, I realized this was our house. But they painted it 2 colors, and it was unrecognizable.
And did any of the local people recognize you, or did they make any comments?
No, they were different people. When we were there, we started out, when I was there, I ended up, not started out. When I left, I knew these statistics, that we had 20,000 population, 8,000 Jews. This is what I knew. And many Hungarians, and of the non-Jews, there were people of Ukrainian backgrounds, people of Hungarian backgrounds, people of German, Schwab background, They came much later. The Hungarians and the Ukrainians had been there already a long time. I don't know how long. But so when we went back, while we were in Auschwitz, Stalin attached, I told you, that Czechoslovakia fell apart, and Carpathia Rus was occupied by the Hungarians. And while we were away, Stalin took his whole Carpathia Rus from the Hungarians back and attached it to the Ukraine, which was on our northern border. See, I could show you.
I know how the map is. Yeah.
There's Carpathia Rus. On the bottom, on the south, there is Hungary. On the north, there is Ukraine.
Yeah.
So the same thing that was here. Here was the end of Carpathia Rus. This was Hungary now. And now, now, when the Hungarians are already out of the picture, he said this is going to be the Ukraine.
And today it's part of the Ukraine.
And this is part of the Ukraine, Zakarpatska Oblast they call it, and no, but that's not all that they geographically attached it to one or the other. The entire population is different. The entire tone of Khust is different. It's ugly. Why? The Hungarians left. The Czech people left. The Hungarians left. They didn't want to stay in the Ukraine. All of them. The Ukrainian, and the Memshal, the governing body there, brought in, today we have 20,000 population. Today there are 45,000. And so most of it are newcomers. It was a nice city with good, nice buildings and nice houses and nice areas and fields and rivers. Who knows from where they brought these people? Maybe they were in the war with the Russian army and they brought them back and settled them there. So it's very different. Mm-hmm. We couldn't find a person to talk to us in Hungarian, to explain to us what happened. So one day I said, I have an idea. We'll go to the post office. Everybody comes to the post office. Maybe we'll find some old-timers who still speak Hungarian. And we did, or who are married to Ukrainians, so they stayed there. So we found a woman and she came with us and she explained to us and she showed it.
Wow.
But the kids loved it because there's so unique a scenery there, like you don't see it much. There is something that is a world treasure actually. It's in a place called Sinavir, very high mountains. And in one of the very high mountains in Sinavir, there is a natural lake.
Wow.
Now, can you imagine?
In a mountain?
A lake in a very high mountain. And it's called, in Czech, it's called, this phenomenon, it's a unique geographical phenomenon. It's called the eye of a sea.
Wow.
The eye of a sea, and once I read up on something on it. It's called Sinavir. Sinavir is the place, and I took my children there. I was never there as a child. It's too far. My parents didn't go on vacations. They didn't have a car. Nobody has a car, you know. But when we were there, and the road to that place, we were in a van that was with us almost 24 hours a day, if we wanted to.
Wow.
And they were very, I asked, would anybody want to go back? Of course, they all would love to go. And 10 more in the family, the grandchildren and the...
So Gita, well, it's been a long time, but I just want to say the last thing, and I have to let you go to sleep, but you know, often I'm sure you've heard where you have a glass that is either
Come closer.
a glass that is either half full or half empty.
Yes.
You look at the glass as half full, always on the positive. That you go back to Poland, there are many survivors that will not hear the word Poland or are very against people going back to Poland. But you go back to show that Am Yisrael Chai, that we are living, that we have survived.
That's right. Yes.
And your whole outlook on life is so positive. You're such a positive, amazing person, Gita.
You know what did it to me? My learning. When I started to learn Torah, this was in Israel. And this is what I told the Germans. Remember when the panel was there? Coming from the wasteland, from the desert of nothing, of no Torah for me. We didn't have a chance to really hear anywhere you look at. You can go in and sit and hear and learn. I did not learn there. I worked and I obtained a doctorate.
You're talking about America.
I'm sorry?
When you were in America.
In America, yes. But about Torah, anybody inquiring about what happened to you as a Jew? No, there was very little of it. And yes, I did that my children heard about the Shoah at my mother's house, because everybody who lived in Borough Park now, it was a nice community that came from all over, from Canada and from Europe and from Russia and from Khust, Jewish people. And they all came to talk to my mother because she was somebody who survived the camps. And the children heard it because these people, Friday night after the meal, I went up with my children to my mother's house, and there were these people, and we all had we were the same age approximately. I mean, plus minus 5 years, everybody was the same age. And we had children, and we had to send them to schools. And we had to buy clothes, and where do you buy clothes? And where do you send your kid to school? And what do you do, and what do you do for a job, and all kinds of things. 5 minutes later, we are in Auschwitz. And we're laughing like crazy at the funny situations. And everybody, we all, it was like group therapy. You know what's group therapy?
Sure, yeah.
Everybody hooks onto something that the previous person said, oh, this reminds me of, and starts talking. And then they find out that they all have a lot of common or similar things that happened to them, and had different way of solving their problems. But it was very relieving for all of us.
Therapeutic, you could say, in a way, therapeutic.
Not only repeated, but we talked about different things every time. It wasn't boring for us. We just felt we are one, we are family. Everybody is family.
And Gita, did you only go back to Poland once you came to Israel?
Absolutely.
When you were in America...
I told them, like when the Jews came away from Egypt, they came back from Egypt. They came back after the 40 years in the desert. I was 40 years in the desert. I was 44 years in the desert. And when I came over, I felt this is it. And I tell you what happened. I tried to get a job. I had a wonderful job in America. This I didn't even mention to you. I worked for the telephone company in two medical centers that they had. They had 95,000 people working for them. And in the New York State only. And they had medical centers, about 7 of them. But 2 were in New York. One was in Brooklyn, one was in Lower Manhattan. And I was working in both of them as the only psychologist in all the telephone company. And I had a wonderful job. Professionally, it was wonderful because I saw many different kind of people, many black people, many black people, not too many Jewish people. And in the worst of time, the drugs, there was AIDS, HIVs, there were murders of people. A mother who's 40 years old, her son was murdered because he went into somebody else's turf.
Like gang wars? With gangs, different gang wars?
No. He was 20 and he passed by and saw a disc joint and went in and they started dancing, there was a DJ, and when he went out, they went after him and killed him. No reason. He did not belong to him. And he stepped into this blood. This mother of 40 years old. And I had mothers who had husbands who had HIV. And she had 2 children, 14 and 18. And they lived with this father who has HIV. And she doesn't know what to do.
Wow.
And it was a very good job. So when I came here, I went straight to the telephone company. And the man was he said, "Anachnu nimtza lach avoda." He was wanted so much for me to work there, and I told him what he did for the company. We had drug addicts and we had alcoholics and and then I saw he couldn't place me because they didn't have a teken. Do you know what a teken is? No. If you are in industry and you have to produce something, they have to describe every person's job in terms of
description.
What work description, exactly that. They didn't know where to place me. I had a doctorate, I had he didn't know what to do. I'm doing psychology for the telephone company. He wouldn't know how to define it. And somebody told me, go to the Amcha. They will take you right away, and they did. Next day, and I described this to you, and I said to the man, what am I allowed to, how much am I allowed to talk about the Shoah to the Shoah survivor? He says, everything. Everything. I had a psychiatrist who heard me. I worked for him for 2 years. He knew I was a survivor. He knew he was a religious Jew, modern religious Jew. Never once did he mention Shoah. And once when I saw the movie
Was this in America?
in America,
Wow.
and he mentioned,
Unbelievable.
wait, once in the 60s, there was the Eichmann trial.
Yeah.
And then there was an art movie, a very specialist. It wasn't a general Hollywood movie. It was a fictionalized. No, it was almost repeated, but put into very different terms. A movie, The Man in the Glass Booth. And I went to see it. And I went to see it alone. It was not far from the house. And I came back next time. I went twice a week to this psychiatrist. And I went into him. And I vomited out Auschwitz and the whole thing. And I talked and I didn't let him say a word, not a word. And the hour was up and he sent me home. And I came next time, I continued. And then I came the third time and he says, hold it. I want to tell you something. If I haven't spoken about the show or ask you, it was because I thought that it would be better for the treatment if I didn't. Wow. So I'm sorry. I do have what to say. I didn't come back anymore. When I came here and I asked him what may I talk to him about, because maybe he was right, I was looking up to the guy. Until that point, he says everything. So I said, and what do you really want me to achieve? I mean, what should I go for? To get Amcha known by the people who need it. And next day he sent me to to a program. It was called a day program, where people lived in the surroundings. It was in an area, Kiryat, I forgot about it. I'll tell you where it is. And Menachem, Kiryat Menachem. And it was an old age home, and one of the floors, part of the floor, was this day program where people come in and then they are driven in and driven out by taxied home, and they have beautiful programs. They get breakfast and lunch and they are taken home. Very nice. And some Nitzolei Shoah, they are there. And so I came in, and the social worker who worked there, who ran this program, introduced me to the people. Everybody was there. And then I said to them, my name is such and such, and I'm a psychologist, and I just came from America, and I'm glad to meet you. And I want to ask you one thing. I am a Holocaust survivor. The first time did I say this publicly. In America, I never talked about it. But here I said, and this freed me. And I said, I am a Holocaust survivor. And I believe that people of your age, everybody who is Jewish and is of your age, must have his own little Shoah story, a Shoah experience. And I would like to hear about it. Everybody raised his hand. Everybody had something to say. There was, I remember, a lady from Baghdad Baghdad, Iraq. And she said, you have to listen to me. There was a big pogrom in 1940. Everybody knows about it. Many people fell. And then I began to, but it was not fair that I was only taking maybe 10 or 8 people who were Nitzolei Shoah. This lady from Baghdad is not considered, and I spoke in Yiddish, because most of them had one language that was shared by all. I could have spoken Hungarian, but most of them didn't know Yiddish. One lady was from Brazil, Argentina, I don't remember. Okay, go. Let's, because I
want to... no, this is amazing. So, Amcha, really, you gave so much to Amcha and they gave so much to you.
They gave me a lot.
And you gave them a lot.
They gave me a lot. They liberated me.
Sure.
They liberated me. I am totally free. And I spoke to a lady who lived in Slovakia. She had 3 sisters and a brother, older than she. She was about 15 and a half. No, she lives in an old age home now for 20 years. And maybe 10 years ago or more, somebody called her daughter. She had 1 daughter and 5 sons. And the daughter called up Amcha that they have to have somebody for the mother who can speak Hungarian. I went over to her. She has a very lovely little apartment in, to my estimation, the best for religious people, the best old age home in town. It's so well organized, and the people have so much to do there. And the rooms are very good. And I came, and she sat down at the table. She has a little dining table in the kitchen. There's a kitchen, and then there is a little living room and a bedroom. And she sits down, and I sit down opposite her. And I said to her a few words in Hungarian. And I said, so, what is your story? And she starts telling me something that she had never spoken about. And this is like 70 years after. Never. And what she's telling me is her town was in Slovakia, and every little location where people lived had, and where Germans ruled, Nazis, they had their own crazy rules of letting people go to Auschwitz. In her town, it was that all the population was being not investigated, what's the word? Searched for hidden
money and treasure. Oh.
Balei erech on their bodies.
Oy.
This girl was 15 and a half, 16 years old. Her mother was standing behind her. We were standing in line, and then there was a machzon, and in there was this thing done. And when she was standing there, her mother went over to the person who was watching here, a policeman or something, and she says, please, leave this child alone. She's so innocent. She doesn't know anything. Leave her alone. And then she went in, and they didn't care what the mother said. And they searched her. And she came back, I don't know, she doesn't speak much about, she didn't speak much about the lagers where she was, at Birkenau, or the working camp, or work camp, or whatever. But when she came home, she was first with a couple of sisters, but then they were selected out and everybody went in a different place. And she came home alone. And what happened there, she came into a little village where they lived, and she found everyone there, the three sisters, or two sisters, or three sisters, and the only brother. No, some little children, they had a larger family, and they went with the mother immediately to the camp, to the gas chambers. When she came home and found them all there, and realized that they all left religion. They left the Yiddishkeit, all of them. She couldn't stand it because she, to this day, I must go to visit her, really. And so she left them all, and she was the youngest. They were adults, many years older. She went to Pressburg, which is the capital city, Bratislava, and there was a Rabbi Schoenfeld who had...
From England, Rabbi Schoenfeld, Solomon Schoenfeld.
I don't know what his first name is.
Solomon Schoenfeld.
He was trying to send the youngsters all to England. They went to, I think, not to Ireland, but Scotland. And they were there for a while, and then they were sent to England, to London, to some kind of home for girls. And then they tried to marry them off. There was somebody who always took care of these girls. And the big goal was to marry them off to Jewish people. And they married her off to a nice man from Vienna who spoke German and he spoke English, and she only spoke Hungarian. And therefore, she could not explain to him that she had a trauma, a very severe trauma, and to be careful, to be gentle. He may have been gentle. He was a very decent man, everybody thinks. But she couldn't talk to him about something that was most pressing to her. And this thing, to this day, she says, I couldn't tell it to him, and I couldn't tell it to others, to nobody, to my children. They guessed that something happened, but she couldn't talk about it until I came. I saw her the first time, and I was with her for many, many years. And I still, I have to go everywhere by taxi. And to go by taxi is over 100 shekel every trip, And we sent Amchaven to her, sent people to her and told her, look, we are sending you somebody else. It's not the same. They don't talk Hungarian to her. And what can I talk to them? And I abandoned her, and it's not nice.
So please God, and she's still alive. She's alive. She's still.
She's in an old age home, and every day, somebody in the family comes over to see her. Sometimes 2 people, sometimes 3 people. Her daughter was living in Gush Katif. For 9 years she was out of Gush Katif until they got a piece of land in the Negev where they asked to be given, and they wanted to all live. The unit, what was called that city, Dekel, not Alei Dekel, Gushat Katif, one of the most vibrant cities.
Neve Dekalim? Neve Dekalim. There was this...
Neve Dekalim? Neve Dekel. Yeah, Neve Dekel, I think. Or maybe Neve Dekalim, יכול להיות. And they all wanted, 500 people wanted to live in the same, and they built gorgeous place. And everybody has a little garden, and everybody has flowers, and everybody has many rooms if they need to. And all the kids, but she went through very severe situations with the children, and I was there for her always. This kind of thing is really helping me to live in myself these days. I forgot about it.
So, Gita, you are unbelievable, because not only are you a survivor, but look how you have helped other survivors. You're unique. You are unique, and you are somebody we should all strive to emulate, really. And your example is, there are no words. There really are no words. And I am extremely grateful, and I will come again. And this has been, for me, the greatest mamish, the greatest honor and zchut to be with you.
Thank you. This you don't need to say.
Thank you very much, Gita. Thank you so much.